Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
pre-drink.
Yes.
What did you make?
I made some tea.
Ooh.
Lemon ginger.
I have Coke.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored. How are you?
I'm good.
It is Super Bowl Sunday.
It is Super Bowl
It
Sunday.
is halftime of the Super Bowl right now.
We are missing the halftime show.
Yes, well,
No,
we
it's
can
cool.
rewatch it
It's
later
fine.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably watch SNL tonight or something too.
Yeah.
I have D&D
Oh.
in an hour and a half. Yeah. I thought you probably weren't listening to me when I said
was
that to
not,
you
no.
yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go play.
That's why I was like, we should record now during the halftime
I
as
see.
opposed to at night.
Maybe I'll go play Wizards Unite by myself.
Well, yeah, you could. Yeah, we had to delay last week because I was quite sick. We didn't play Sunday, but then we were going to play through the week, and I was very sick. It was the worst.
Yeah, so this time, Brilliant Week 2. Hopefully you'll finish that.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we have Adventure Sync in the game.
Though we did have an excellent... I was talking about D&D, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
But also Wizards
'Cause we
Unite, I
didn't play
also
Wizards
missed
Unite.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did. And... But we did play Friday night, had an excellent run of Dark Detectors with our friend Rich.
Yes.
He put down 18 very generously, and we just, the last 6, so we have 2 inns that we're at, right? And if you've watched live streams or some of the vlogs, we're usually in that place. But there's a place we sit, and we're at 2 inns, and we put 3 Dark Detectors each, and
Yeah.
the last one we were going to leave. Then he was like, oh, do you want to do one more? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was
And it
going
went
back and forth between
bonkers.
fortresses and the inns.
Yes, you were.
Because I was trying to finish Wild Boar, which I did.
Which you did, yeah.
But I was in a battle, and all of a sudden he goes, oh, it's Picket.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't tuned into us at all, Picket is the thing that we talk about the
It was only
most.
the second Picket we had ever encountered, not
Yeah.
at FanFest.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
In 7 months.
And I
or
glanced
however
over
long.
at the screen. I saw the bubble, and I was like, oh my God, I have to get out of this battle right now.
But it gets better
Yeah.
because then Dumbledore came.
Yes.
Because then we were talking about how Dumbledore is the only other one that we almost never see. And then another Picket
And then
came, and
another
we
Picket.
all 3 of us got all 3.
also a time turner. So we had 2
And 2
emergencies
swooping
on that
evils.
run.
It was out of control.
Crazy.
If you're tuning in and you don't care about Wizards Unite,
Sorry.
just know, yes, just know it was very exciting half hour. It was a very exciting half an hour. But otherwise, I think the week, I was just down for the count, really. Like I was just completely down. I started to not feel great on Tuesday night. Woke up Wednesday and I was just like, oh man. I had a call with my boss for work, and my throat. You know how you get the throat and it like tightens. She's like, whoa, you sound weird. I was like, yeah.
Thanks.
I'm sick. My throat is swollen. But now I'm better. I'm much better.
That's great.
Yeah.
Also, the series finale of The Good Place, which
Series
is
finale of The
one
Good
of our
Place.
favorite shows
We
of all
love
time.
it. We are strongly considering doing
Special
maybe an
episodes,
episode or
yeah.
2 about The Good Place because we love it that much. And today I just watched on YouTube the first episode of Star Trek Picard, which I love. A lot of Star Trek, but especially Picard. He's my favorite character. Well, Data is my favorite character, but
Yeah.
he is also in it. So that is exciting without any spoilers. So yeah, a lot of exciting things going on.
Yep.
It's February.
It is February.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
January went fast. Very fast.
Yeah. Can I show off the mug?
Yeah, I think I drank out of it in one of the previous
Well, I
ones.
just pointed it out because we have our Magical Theory podcast line, and we also have other things.
I think I wore
the
this in the
Underground.
last episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what I was saying to you. I was like,
yeah.
it's a little cold and this is super comfortable, so I'm wearing it again.
No, it's really
I don't
sad.
care.
But I'm bringing it up because the promo code for 10% off the WizardPhD merch.
12 days.
You can
right?
have it until
14th?
February the 14th. So use that
Love
promo
room.
code LOVEROOM to get 10% off. Links
Winston
are
is trying to go
in the
under the
description.
couch again. This is what he
Oh.
does when he wants attention. He hides.
He's
I
fine.
can just see his tail. Oh, no, it's gone now. Okay.
All right, we should get into the episode.
Yeah. Juan's ready?
Juan's ready.
Okay, turn to page 24, the Burrow. Today's lesson is called A Life Unlived.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, sadness. A synopsis to start us. So the chapter begins with Harry face to face with his friend Ron Weasley. After his father reported that Harry had a notice for underage magic, Ron and his brothers, Fred and George, had apparently flown a car in order to free Harry. They barely escape Uncle Vernon's desperate attempts to stop Harry from leaving. During the flight back to the Burrow, Harry recounts his conversation with Dobby and suspects maybe that the Malfoys sent Dobby to mess with him. When they all get to the Burrow, Mrs. Molly Weasley berates her sons over their recklessness, but softens the more she learns of Harry's rough summer. The boys set about their chore of de-gnoming the garden. I love that scene. And eventually, Mr. Arthur Weasley returns from his work at the Ministry of Magic and becomes the newest target of Mrs. Weasley's ire. After a wild night and morning, Harry goes up to Ron's room and settles down. I didn't mention Ginny, even though I love Ginny.
It's fine.
But she's just a little
child
at this
right
point.
now. She's just a stalker in the corner.
She's absolutely something. What did you think of the chapter?
I really like this chapter, and I mean, it's the Burrow, so this is the first time that we're going there, but it, to me, really puts us back into this magical world again. Mm-hmm. It's like everything is like sparkly and new, and Harry's just like in awe. And I mean, okay, there's a lot of things. So there's like a little like tiny notes. So first of all, the flying car situation. Going back to our last episode, see, I told you so. Like, okay, the Weasley, they're like, they know that they can get away with like using this flying car because they didn't enchant it. Again, questioning like, all right, who is going to be targeted with this law? Yep. People who aren't from magical families or have like other of age witches and wizards who... Yep.
You're talking about the Trace.
The Trace, sorry, the Trace, yeah. So that I was just like, oh my gosh, these kids. So, I mean, but going back to the conversation at large, like it's interesting to consider lawmaking in general, not just the Trace, but like who makes laws and or whose responsibility is it to govern things in the society, whether it's by law or like, oh, we'll just leave it to the family. And that sort of like the idea that we take care of each other, and particularly the, oh, adults take care of children. And that's sort of, we've had conversations before about paternalism and just like the, like who is it that gets to decide these things, and what are those things?
Definitely.
That's
about our first, this is our first sighting of a magical marriage. What did you think about that with the Arthur and Molly?
I mean, they're pretty normal.
Yeah. It reminds me of our earlier episode title of like magical theory muggle problems. Like the way they interact, the way like Fred and George, you know, rip on Molly for like having a crush on Gilderoy Lockhart, and like they're yelling, and there's like the good cop bad cop kind of feel, and then like it just is really fun. Like who the disciplinarian is meant to be is Molly, and like she doesn't necessarily want to be. It feels like to me. That's why she's like, come on, Arthur, like step up here.
Well, I love how Arthur works for the Ministry, and like he works in this department with Muggle art. Like he's obsessed with Muggle things. And then is also the person that's like, oh, let me just keep these magical objects.
You wrote the loophole in,
and it's like, of course you did.
Well, if you didn't have any intention of using it, you know, you just wanted to see that you could do it.
But that's the interesting thing about these characters too, is that there's this complexity to it. It's like, oh, well, I'm not really hurting anyone.
Right.
But you can easily see how something that is harmless or not intended to be something that could cause harm in certain situations. So, or with different motives or motivations for like power or whatever it is.
And it comes back around, right? I mean, like they flew it this time and then they try to fly it later, get problems. Yeah, I just love it. That's why I titled it. This is one of the chapters, really, with the Dobby chapter before it. They're like certain chapters that really stick in my mind that like I don't know that if I've just like imagined them and then I've seen the movies, but they're like really impactful to me. There's certain quotes like Harry's at the end where he says to Ron like, this is the best house I've ever been in. Like it just is such a great way of encapsulating what Harry is experiencing and what Ron is experiencing at the same time. Where Ron is like kind of almost embarrassed. He's like, my room is even smaller than the one you had with your aunt and uncle who like hate you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just one of the chapters and one of the scenes that really, really sticks with me. I don't know why.
I love Harry and Ron's friendship. Like we see glimpses of it in the first book, but we're reminded again in this chapter that Ron is apologizing for not having as much. And what is so great is that in Harry's perspective, Ron has so much because it's like everything he has ever wanted.
Right.
Like he loves the messiness, the quirkiness of everything, like commenting, oh, the Dursleys would hate this garden, and like just how out of place everything is. Like the quirky is probably how I would describe everything about the Burrow, and ultimately like a family that is full of love. Like that is everything that Harry basically, yearns for, at least the way that we understand his character. And so it kind of puts a different perspective on, like, of course, like it's not about what you have. There's other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What went through my mind as you were talking was, I wonder if Harry's parents were alive through his childhood, through not to now, would he be friends with Ron? I think it's really interesting to think about, right? Because it feels like, as far as the Potter family is concerned, with what we know just from like Gringotts, and then like way later in the stories, we learn that they have a very long lineage of like powerful wizards. That the Potters, as far as like wizarding economics and power go, are probably closer to like how Harry was imagining Malfoy. But because of what Harry has gone through and what happened to his parents, like he loves like what Ron has, because it's exactly what he wishes that he has. The coziness, the like crowdedness, the chaos. He talks about the garden, right? I love that scene where he's like, this is exactly what a garden should be like. Yeah. It's like a little chaotic. There's a plant, there's a pond, there's frogs, there's trees growing everywhere, there's weeds growing everywhere. Yeah, it just is as opposed to like the way he imagines Malfoy Manor, probably pretty accurately as it turns out, as being like a pretty stuffy place, probably, with the house elf. And well, even with contrast in the Dursleys, it's like the Weasleys, who they are who they are, and it's not like they're trying to put a front that's this, we're trying to show that we are perfect. And that's basically the Dursleys to me, is they put up this facade and like try to have this perfect life, this normal life, this perfectly normal life, right? And the Weasleys are just the completely opposite of that. And it's I don't know, I just loved they really are thing. They really are. I mean, I wonder for J.K. Rowling, like, how much time went into crafting the Weasley family, because it feels like there's just some really clever decisions, I feel like, to have two of them out of the house, two of the sons, to have only one daughter, to have Ron be the youngest son, to have the twins, to have Percy be who Percy is and becomes, like, to show that, like, even within one family, like, we get that sense, because there's always these discussions as we go through the stories of, like, well, they're related to someone evil, so are they themselves evil? And Wizards Unite has the same conversations as well. My parents were Death Eaters. Does that make them evil? Yeah. And you put one family, like a diversity of how to act and ways of being here. Yeah. And I just really love that. I love the twins, man. I love the twins. I've always thought to myself about, it's really hard, I think, to write funny. And I think I said this in previous episode in book 1. But she manages it. It's subtle, it's minor, but like she writes funny for the two of them. It's really great. It's super hard to do. I have no idea how to do it. So maybe it's easy for other people, but it's not easy for me.
So I have some quotes also. Yeah. So one quote, I mean, I had multiple quotes, and I was like, okay, calm down, pick something. So when they're trying to break Harry out of the house, and he's like, oh, my trunk, all my things, it's downstairs. And they just like go and like start picking the lock. And so I didn't write down. Oh no, I did write down. Fred says this. A lot of wizards think it's a waste of time knowing this sort of muggle trick, but we feel their skills worth learning even if they are a bit slow. And it was interesting because I had kind of a conflicted moment because I was like, yeah, sure, that's admirable. But I also know the flip side of it of like forcing kids to learn things that are kind of like, well, what's the use of this? So there is definitely, because as someone who loves learning, like there is something
Times
about,
tables.
there is something, or doing anything like without technology
Sure.
or pretending it doesn't exist. I mean, I think that there is value in learning things that aren't quote unquote useful or like that you need to use right away. I don't know. I'm the older I get and the more that I teach, the more that I'm kind of like, I don't feel that I have the right to police other people's what they want to know or what they want to learn. And it gets complicated, of course, because we build structures and like tell people this is what you should know.
You're an expert in this, so if you're not going to decide who's going to decide, it's free for all,
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
Yes, but totally. I mean, I feel like that it's another example of Fred and George being really interesting characters. I think when we meet her, Fred and George are akin to Luna in some ways. Like they have a tenacity for learning that is outside of what Hogwarts is about and what maybe their maybe not Luna's family, but what maybe Mr. and Mrs. Weasley would maybe I'm probably wrong on this, like how they judge Fred and George, or I mean, Mrs. Weasley brought up like you could be a little bit more like Percy, you could use it, being a little bit more like Percy, but there's a freedom to it. There's a freedom to Fred and George. There's a relief to me every time they're on the page. Like there's a relief to it. They're not burdened or bound by the same things that even Ron and Harry feel burdened and bound by. They're just like, I mean, I don't remember if it actually gets stated in the chapter, but almost certainly it's Fred and George's idea, right? Ron's probably like, we need to go save them. How are we going to do it? And they're like, let's take the car. Like, because put it this way, I bet Ron didn't even know it was enchanted, but Fred and George would have tinkered around with it, would have gone in there alone and pressed all the buttons and actually been curious, right? They learned how to lockpick by hand without magic. So they probably knew how to drive the car. Obviously they did. And it's a stick shift as far as I know. So yeah, good on them. They're great. They're great characters. Great.
I mean, it is that not feeling inhibited by like, they are who they are. And it's not that they're, I don't know. Free, I think, is the freedom that you're speaking to, I think really captures them as people.
There seems to me to be only one person that they actually care about how the person views them, and that is their mother. Just, I mean, they'll still have an interesting relationship with each other, but like, I don't think they care about what any of their teachers think about them. I don't think they care about what like their peers really think about them. I think they're so certain in their own abilities to be creative, and I think she really fleshes that out. She plays it out so nicely by the sixth book to like see who these twins really are and their visions for themselves, and it's really great.
Well, it's interesting also to think about within the context of the family also, although we don't really know. The only character, well, I guess we did meet Charlie like briefly, but we don't really know the older brothers at this point in terms of like who they are within this family structure. But we know a bit about Percy being a prefect and just
I don't
being
know if
super
we met
intense.
Charlie. I think it was his friends.
Okay, so we heard about the only thing we heard about is that Charlie
he wrote to Ron,
does things with dragons.
Right,
That's about it. But it's interesting to think about that also. So you have Bill, Charlie, Percy, and so you had the Weasley family with those. I mean, if you think about there are times when you have like different sizes of the family, right? And then Fred and George come in. And so I wonder if part of it is like, I don't know, they
By
bring
the time they were at
this.
the 4th and 5th kid, and they were twins.
Well, no, just
Their
that
parents were like-
them themselves like recognizing, because everyone has like full agency as a person. So like being like, oh, we'll play the playful like, or we'll play it up
We'll
because
entertain the
it
stress.
like because Molly is stressed AF and just doing all this stuff, and they're like, hey mom, you know, like
Check this out.
I could definitely see that as being a dynamic, and
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
know.
That makes me smile. Yeah. I think they probably were like that. I think they are aware of who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a choice. There's a choice to it. But I was just thinking about how, because they're like weirdly, they're secondary characters, but they're like weirdly important as we go on. Like in each book, they have like something really tangible to offer. Like, they are the ones who carry Harry's thing in book 1, his trunk, onto the train and introduce him. They are the ones who fly the car. They are the ones who will have the Marauder's map. They are the ones who will do gambling in the 4th one. They are the ones who, in the 5th one, they, rebel pretty hard against Umbridge. And then the 6th one, they open the store and all this. And it's just, it's really great. And like I love it in the 5th one when we get there, like all their creativity really starts to come out. And then like I don't know if it's in the book or just the movie where they talk about how like I always thought our pursuits lay outside of the field of academia.
We'll get there later.
They're awesome.
Another thing that I wrote down was, this sentence just made me laugh a lot. Malfoy made Dudley Dursley look like a kind, thoughtful, and sensitive boy. Because that really, really shows you what Harry thinks of Draco Malfoy. Like, we have interacted, with Malfoy a little bit, but way more with Dursley in all of these, like, terrible contexts. And we don't like, I don't like Dudley Dursley.
Yeah.
And so, to put that as, just to try to imagine Dudley being seen as a kind, thoughtful, and sensitive boy was hilarious to me.
I think part of it is that Harry has friends now and Malfoy picks on his friends. And I think that feels different than being picked on yourself sometimes. Harry maybe feels like more protective of them than he does of himself when it comes to the emotional side of it. Yeah. Because like Malfoy picks on Neville, makes fun of Ron for being poor, makes fun of Hermione a lot in this book. Yeah. I forgot that line. That's intense. That is an intense assessment of who Draco is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's interesting in book 1. They don't interact that much.
No, they don't.
There's like the introduction, then there's the robes, then the introduction at Hogwarts before the sorting, and then like the Remember All, and then like basically in the forest is the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he comes up a bit more in this book as we move on. I forgot that Lockhart came up already. That's kind of funny. It cracks me up.
Oh, Lockhart. What else? So I was trying to make some Wizards Unite connections or like pick up on it because I don't know, maybe because I haven't been keeping a track during book 1, but there seems to be a lot already in Chamber of Secrets of the foundables that currently exist in the game or things like that.
Fort Anglia.
Yeah, so the flying car.
No Dobby.
No Dobby yet. Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
He's got
to come.
It's
But
favorite
in
character.
the artwork for when it's a foggy time during the day, foggy weather during the day, it's the flying car, which I think is funny because they're like, Mom, it was cloudy. No one was going to see us.
Flying car.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There was also this like throwaway kind of line that Arthur says. So he had a long day at work. And so they were raiding, and I think he said something like there were 9 raids, I don't know. And that not all of the things that they found his department was dealing with. So one example was some extremely odd ferrets that were sent to the Committee on Experimental Charms. And it made me think of the Slytherin girl, who I think is the only ferret. But
that's right. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Wow. Yes. Wow. Good one.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Mm.
And then, of course, we have Chudley Cannons as Ron Weasley's favorite team.
9th in the league.
Which, yeah, I love it because I love that Ron loves the Chudley Cannons because it's basically like, oh, they were good, and then I don't know, they're kind of like they're not. I mean, you probably have experience with that.
I'm from Buffalo,
the
yes.
Buffalo Bills
and the Sabres.
and the Sabres.
Pretty brutal.
But he still stands by them, and he's obsessed with them. Like his whole room was just orange, which I also thought was funny. And then also in Ron's room, we have a copy of, or stacks of, what we find out are comics or books. The Adventures of Martin Miggs, the Mad Muggle, which apparently is a comic book series published by LCA Comics since the 60s. That's all the information I could find.
Also the gnomes.
The gnomes? Yeah.
They're oddities, right?
Yeah.
Or no, they're not oddities. They're
confoundables.
confoundables. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in a lot.
And yeah, I think there could be a whole page for the Burrow.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Because we're going to find out more of like more things that exist there that are super magical.
Yes.
And then the last quote that I wrote was about Arthur. So one of the items that they confiscated were, so basically what he does is he goes after, you're not supposed to put any enchantments on Muggle objects.
Right.
And so that's his department. And so he found some shrinking keys. And so he was talking about how hard it is to actually get people for this, and says no Muggle would admit their key keeps shrinking. They'll insist they keep losing it. Bless them, they'll go to any lengths to ignore magic, even if it's staring them in the face. Which I find funny, because it's, I mean, the whole series is about magic. It's about, I mean, we are in Harry's position with this sense of wonder. And it is also kind of metaphorical of like, let the magic into your hearts.
And the things that are right in front of you that you don't notice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's not magic in the sense necessarily of how she's talking about it.
Right.
Or like in the book. But totally. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I love that. I actually thought about that particular scene a little bit too. Just as very cleverly written. It's such a great way to like introduce a character and the idea of a wizarding profession, and like what are some of the things that like day-to-day wizard might do, you know? I don't know, you know, they're worried about safety, you know, problems, solving problems. Yeah. Awesome. So I believe the next chapter is in Diagon Alley, I believe. I saw the title, Flourish and Blots, right?
Did you want to say anything else about the title you chose? Or did we?
Oh, A Life Unlived? No, I mean, we talked about it. So we did it. So it's basically, to me, the experience that Harry is having.
Yeah.
And I always appreciated Harry a lot for not being, he's not jealous. It doesn't seem like maybe it's tinged by jealousy, but he doesn't exhibit jealousy. He exhibits curiosity and wonder and kind of excitement much, much more. Rather than being like, oh, you know, I'm jealous of Ron. It's more like,
yeah,
this is awesome.
It's
Thank
really,
you for inviting me into your home. You know?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't know. I feel like if I were Harry at this point, I would be resentful.
Right.
Of like,
Or
I could have had
emptiness.
I could have had something different.
A Life Unlived.
Yeah,
Yes,
for 11 years of my life,
right.
or 10 years of my life, whatever. And this could have been it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like linger on that or hold on to that.
He just loves it. He
Yeah.
just is like super into it. I always appreciated that about him. He's certainly affected in his day-to-day actions by what has happened to him, but it doesn't affect him too often. I'm trying to even think of like, is there a time where he's really like jealous of somebody? I don't know. You know, not like the true like seeing green envy. I feel like it's more like, oh man, I'm so jealous of you. Like, oh, this is awesome. So jealous, you know, that you know all this, that you like lived like this, you know, to have siblings and chaos and a garden and gnomes, you know. I mean, I love the this is a great chapter, my gosh. I always love that he like tries to treat the first gnome nice and it bites him.
Yeah. Well, because it was like, Harry quickly learns not to.
What? You're throwing him. What are you doing?
And then he's just like, oh, God.
I get it. Yeah. Okay, I
Goodbye.
see what you're talking about. Yeah. So funny. Yeah, it's a good chapter.
Mm-hmm.
We're really moving along. I mean, it does feel great to be back in the wizarding world, and to like not go in the same route is really fun. It's
Right.
not Hagrid, it's Ron.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the Burrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we met Arthur. And, well, we saw Ginny already before, but yeah.
Oh, Ginny. Coming soon.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Wands ready.